Welcome to the Let's Go Recovery podcast, where we investigate sobriety and beyond that, explore solutions to help us heal at the core, where the root of our problems like addiction or alcoholism begin. We hope you hear something in today's podcast that ignites a change in your life. Welcome back, guys. I'm here today with Charlie Beljan, professional golfer, father, husband, and ex-person that struggled with alcohol and depression and anxiety. Thanks for being on the show, Charlie.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've never thought that I'd be here sitting down at this table with you, and I'm so excited to be here, and I look forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Hey, man, let's just jump right into it, man. You had a career. You had a tour, PGA Tour career that a lot of people probably envied, looked at, and thought everything's going great in Charlie's life. Yet we know you were in the midst of struggling with things like anxiety and depression.
Yeah, you know, I did. I worked so hard my entire life, starting from about 9 years old, to get to the PGA Tour. I got to the PGA Tour, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden, I'm out on the roads. I'm away from my family, got a lot of pressure, and so I started to self-medicate, man. And I started with alcohol. Kept it with alcohol, but the amount of alcohol is what progressed to where it took over every aspect of my life. I was planning, you know, my practice around drinking. I was thinking about drinking when I was on the golf course on a couple, you know, different occasions. I was shooting airplane bottles on there just to kind of give me a little peace and get me through the round to suppress the anxiety. And meanwhile, while I'm doing that, I'm also popping Xanax, like Tic Tacs, to try to
balance out,
nerves, balance out, whatever you want. And it was just a vicious cycle that kept going. But what was so wild is here, everybody thought I was so happy because I'd finally made it to the pinnacle of golf. I won on the PGA Tour. What more could you ever ask for? For what I set out for as a kid, my dreams, I conquered them. And when I conquered them, and as I conquered them, I had never been so miserable and sad in my entire life.
You know, I saw a picture of you at the 2012, I think it was the Disney that you won, right? Yep. And so I saw a picture of you sitting. Tell me a little bit about that weekend or that week. You know, I saw you sitting by, I think it was a little water hazard maybe there. You're sitting on the bank with some of the guys. Tell me what was going through your mind that day.
I walk into this tournament. I'm a rookie, and I've got to finish solo third to keep my job. I just had a kid. I had all the pressure on me that you could ever imagine. I go out, play a solid round Thursday. Friday, I get to the range. I'm kind of warming up, and something's not right. And I tell my caddy, I said, something's not good. So we have the medical come over. My heartbeat's elevated. So I'm like, why not take another Xanax? You know,
for sure.
And but I can't quit, because if I quit, I don't make enough money. I lose my job. Then what? And so I went and played that day. I had a panic attack on national television. I shot 64. You know, some of our best golf is always played when we're not thinking about golf. We're thinking about surviving. For me, that day, I'm putting one step on in front of another. I'm on national television. I've got ambulances following me, but I can't quit because I've got to make this money to keep my job. So I signed my card for a 64. I start crying. They cart me out of there in an ambulance. I go to Arnold Palmer's hospital that night. I never take off my golf shoes. The next morning, my agent, Andy Dawson, picks me up from the hospital, takes me to my hotel room, hoping to get 2 or 3 hours of sleep before my tee time in the final group on the PGA Tour. I had to have a couple drinks that morning because I was like, what else am I going to do? Here's what's going on. And I was lucky enough to hold on for 2 days to become a winner on the PGA Tour through this crazy struggle. And then once I won on the PGA Tour and had a few years exemption, and now I had a lot of notoriety, not necessarily fame, or you could call it fame if you wanted, but then that's when things really started to go downhill for me, because I know for the next 2 years, I didn't have to perform superbly in order to keep my job. I had my job. I started taking advantages of all these parties that they're throwing and all these things, and really things spiraled out of control to the point of no end.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about something that I think everybody goes through, certainly not with the national TV and the cameras and all that stuff, but the escalation in our lives where enough is enough. I heard a saying recently that said, you can never get enough of something that will never be enough.
You can. Wow. Yeah.
That's right. So that sort of thing where I'm trying to fill my, and that could be money, that can be a toxic relationship. Yours was booze, you know, cocaine and vodka, whatever it is, you're going to try to fill that void. And for you, like, you couldn't get enough of it. because it was never going to be enough.
It's never going to be enough.
Talk to me about that escalation process where you're drowning yourself in, and I'm going to say you're drowning out your anxiety, your depression, your fears. You're trying to drown that out with, drugs and alcohol at this point. Tell me a little bit about that escalation and how you realized, hey man, this is not something that can be part of my life.
Yeah, for me, it started with, a couple mixed drinks. And then, as you know, we need more and more mixed drinks. So before you know it, in my prime, I would be teeing it up on the PGA Tour on a weekend in a leader group, and I would have 30 beers the night before, or a fifth of Bacardi the night before. Those were my two poisons. And I saw nothing wrong with it because it made me feel better. And then I'd wake up in the morning, I'd feel those anxiety, the anxiousness. And then so that would result to popping the pills. But for me, the alcohol just overtook my life to where I was waking up in the morning. My wife was saying, here's a list of people you have to call to apologize. I didn't remember any of it. And I kind of hit my rock bottom. I'm almost 41 months sober now. I was up playing in a golf tournament. I hit 18 greens. I 3-putted 13 times because my hands were so shaky. And but that didn't stop me. As soon as I got off the golf course, I went right to the booze. Well, I got home, my wife and I had a talk, and I'm kind of the all in, all out kind of guy. I said, you know what? I'm never going to drink again. And she just laughed. I'd said that a million times. But I've never had a drink 41 months later, and my life has never been more incredible than it is right now.
And that's awesome to hear you say that, you went on this journey and you've made a decision to not drink anymore. Like that idea of I'm not going to do it anymore. A lot of our viewers are probably in the midst of either trying to do that or actually commit and follow through with making that decision and actually doing it. I'm not going to drink. I look back at my life and some people say man, you're doing a podcast or you're meeting with Charlie, you're meeting with all these cool people and they're how'd you get there? I go, I didn't drink on January 3rd, 2021. You hit on it. We shouldn't, you and I are two guys that have known each other for some years. We shouldn't be sitting here right now.
We absolutely should not.
Either because of something we did or the fact that, hey man, you're never going to talk about sobriety because you did that. One day you said it, and then you were in a different place than I said it, but we said these two things. That brings us to this exact moment right here, right now, and hopefully somebody hears something that says, man, I can do that. To the guy that's listening to this or the woman that's listening to this and saying, I don't think I can do it. What are you saying to them in this aspect of, yes, you can, and here are some of the thoughts or things that you would have them consider?
For me, when somebody says, I don't think I can do it, I sat in those shoes. I sat in those shoes for a decade saying the exact same thing. And unfortunately, some of us got to hit a low spot. Everybody's rock bottom is different, but it's rock bottom. For me, I had, my rock bottom wasn't as severe as some other people, but it was enough to scare me. And it scared me for many reasons. One, the thought of losing my family, the thought of losing my life. We're both lucky that our hearts are beating and our eyes are open and we're able to sit here and share our story. But for the person that's sitting there right now thinking, I don't know how to do it, I can't do it or whatever, it all comes down to you. It all comes down to being held accountable and making a decision. And I know it's a hard decision, but it's a decision that will forever change your life for the better. I sat there, I'd think, gosh, I can't do it. What am I going to do with my time? How do I go to a party? You figure it out. And what the really cool thing is, and the thing that I thrive for the most is through this journey is I used to sit there with people and chit chat about, oh gosh, NFL or sports or some other little just content fillers. Now when I sit down and I have a conversation with somebody, I'm present, I'm there, I'm intrigued of what they say. I want to hear their story. I want to share my story because that's how we interact with people in a world of social media where social media is total pretend, total garbage. That is not real life. And people want to pretend that way. I was the same guy. I was on the PGA Tour. Everybody thought my life was so good. Meanwhile, it was in shambles and I didn't know what to do. But you've got to take the first step of just deciding. And once you do that, there's AA meetings. I personally didn't go to AA meetings. I started 4 o'clock was my drinking time. So at 4 o'clock, I'd put my headphones in and I'd go for a walk because you got to fill that time and that void. And then all of a sudden, with a handful of walks, I noticed, holy shit, I'm down 10 pounds on the scale. Oh my gosh, what happens if I start to eat a little bit better? Then I'm starting to get compliments from people about how I look, about the way my behavior's changed. And what's really powerful is when you make that decision and you decide you're going to get sober or whatever it is you're going to do, the snowball effect for the positive is so incredible. I was never a guy that wanted to be patted on the back. Now I embrace those pats on the back because I know how hard I've worked worked to get to where I was. I spent my whole career working hard to get to the PGA Tour and winning. That isn't anything compared to the amount of work that I've put in. But the cool thing is the only work you got to do is to not put that needle in your arm, not do that blow, not take that drink. That is the only work you have to do, and everything else snowballs, but not for the worse, for the better. When we put that drink in our mouth, it snowballs, but the wrong way. When you decide to not put that drink and you figure out how not to do it, the amount of opportunities and the relationships and the things that start to happen are truly remarkable. Yes, you're going to lose some friends. Yes, some days are going to be hard. Yes, you're not going to know what to do with your time. It's because you're making a life adjustment. But once you start to figure it out, you're like, gosh, I wasted so much time and energy doing the booze or doing whatever your pleasure is that you're like, I'm sad sometimes because I realize how much time I wasted. And there's only one thing there's nothing more precious than time. We can't get time back. It's the most valuable commodity that we have. Not money, not anything like that, but it's time. And when you make that decision to stop drinking, stop doing whatever it is your pleasure, you get all of that time back. And then you can start to do amazing things with that time instead of drowning yourself with sorrows and going nowhere.
There's so much there, Charlie. That's just some great thought. It's igniting a lot of thoughts in my mind about time and how we spend that. We use wasted. We say we're going to get wasted, right?
Yep.
And they don't recognize what you're actually wasting is hours, days of your life. That's what you're wasting.
Years for some of us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So when you talk about wasted, and now you're involved, you're participating, and you talk about the snowball effect. I love the idea that we got back time, right? We get these times. Tell me some of these times that you're getting back with your wife and your son, and some of the things you're getting to do now because of not drinking and partying.
Yeah, for me, my wife was at the end. She didn't give me an ultimatum, but it was kind of an ultimatum. And as we were talking earlier, us guys, we sit around and we complain about our wives or whatever. And now I sit around and some buddies, they might complain about their wives, and I realize, you know what, guy, you're the problem. It's not your wife. And the minute I quit drinking, my wife's relationship and I has taken off. Still to this day, 41 months, she makes me cookies. She did these little things. Each day when I first started, I got a little treat each day, whether it was a cookie, a balloon, a pat on the back, and we gone. But the coolest thing, and my wife is the most important thing to me ever, but the time that I get to spend with my son. I was the guy that was planning drinking around my son. I'm divorced, so I only have my son half the time. So I'd be like, all right, if I don't get my son on the weekend, I can get super smashed, versus if I have him, I've got to be somewhat responsible. So now I am taking time away from my son in order to drink alcohol. And that is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. And before I'd kind of dread going to his football practices or whatever, because I'm like, well, I can't show up with a cooler because I'll be judged. And I got to make sure that I can get him to and from practice. So I've got to stay sober. So I was pissed off that my son had practice. Now I'm the only dad that sits there. And I sat there for 2 hours last night, 7 to 9, freezing my butt off. But I got to watch my son in action, doing something he loved. And the fulfillment that I get from that, I never got that from alcohol, and you'll never get it from alcohol or drugs or any of that. What you'll get back is your time and your life and the relationships. And yeah, you might say, oh, my relationships are tough now and they're not that important to me. But when you clean up your act, those people appreciate that, and the relationship grows so strong to where it's almost impossible to break up.
Yeah, you talk about the fact that you won't know that until you get there.
You do it.
Right? Until you get there and you start thinking about the things that are rewarding.
Yep.
You've had some success with dollars, right? You've talked about it, and obviously I know about your, PGA Tour money, had some success in the stock market, different things in your life. The ultimate success and fulfillment we're looking for is actually at a soul level.
100%.
And you are never going to get that feeling, like you said, in the bottom of a bottle. I'm never going to find it. But when I look for those soul moments, they're actually usually pretty cheap.
Very
right?
cheap. Very cheap. Almost they don't even cost you anything most of the time.
You're like, wow, man, I got to stand on a mountain. My wife and I went to South Africa, and we stood on the top of the highest point in South Africa, looked out at where the Indian Ocean and where the Atlantic Ocean come together. And there is just something that I'm going, wow. And then she's there and we're taking it in, and you're going, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
One, like we talk about, but like how beautiful is just that moment. You know, you go, I'll never get that back.
Nope.
And I've probably had those in my addiction and alcoholic behavior that were there.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did some stuff that I probably should have had the same appreciation for that I really wasn't present for, whether I cognitively wasn't there, like I was so hammered I forgot.
Yep.
Or like I just didn't realize how rewarding
it is.
Some of that stuff, man. You're telling me about your son playing football, and I'm thinking, man, this is super cool. I missed out on that. I was drunk dad my daughters until they were 19,
Mm-hmm.
but they're graduating college. And we just found out they graduate on the same day.
Wow.
The problem is one's in Michigan and one's in Tucson. I told my wife there's probably no dollar that I'm not willing to spend to be at both of those. So we're working on a whole bunch of different avenues. The point is that I'm not going to miss that, right? And so if somebody puts down drugs and alcohol today, they don't have to miss out on their life tomorrow.
No, you actually don't miss out on anything. Those experiences that you just talked about, you gain so much more. I mean, we can both say, and so many people, oh, I've been to a huge sporting event, or I've been to this. And yeah, you can say you've done it, but you can't remember it. And even if you can remember it, it's not that great of a memory because of how you felt the next day or so forth. But when you're sober and you experience those things, first of all, I think the biggest things is, like you said, the experience you had with your wife up there, and you were like, this is so incredible. You could have been there intoxicated, but it wouldn't have touched you the way it did. But I think the thing that I laugh at most is now when I go to these events, and there's some events that I avoid, like we had the Waste Management Phoenix Open, unless it hurts me because I'm a player and I'm not playing, but that's just not an environment that I would put myself in anymore because all those people are out there crazy. Before I got sober, I'm like, this is the best. I got to go. Now you watch these people falling, they slip in, everybody's making fools of themselves. And what I find so ironic is I used to think that was cool. And then all I did was quit drinking. And it makes me sad to think that not only that I used to think that it was cool, but I was 10 times worse than those people. Oh, yeah. And that is so powerful because you see sitting there as being sober, you see, one, how great the experience is, but also you see what people are missing out on because they put the beer and the booze and whatever in front of the experience. And I mean, we used to buy tickets next to the bathroom because I pee a lot if I drink a lot. And so I had to be close. Like, how stupid is that to base your seats off of where a bathroom is so it's more convenient? But it's just like you do so many things that are so difficult and you have to go out of your way to accomplish, when in reality, if you just stop the drinking, all those things just come together and come to you, and it makes everything just so much more memorable.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the simple stop drinking, and then see, right? And I think there's probably some people that are struggling with the idea of, I'm not getting it back quick enough. Talk to me a little bit, and our viewers a little bit, about the idea of this. This is going to be a journey, right? Like, absolutely. People talk about that. Give me a little bit of, 41 months, which, by the way, if I didn't say it, congratulations. That's super,
Thank you.
Super impactful. Yeah. And I know you have a lot of influence, and I know people are probably experiencing some of that influence because of it. But in that 41 months, like, you didn't get a parade thrown for you because you stopped doing whatever you did. Talk to me a little bit about that growth and what you've experienced in that way.
So first off, I'm going to say it's not easy. It is probably the hardest thing you're going to do, but it's also the most rewarding thing you're going to do. All of a sudden, instead of sitting there on the couch at night, whether you get home from work or wherever, and having your 3 or 4 glasses of wine, scrolling your phone, you're sitting there with your thoughts and your feelings, something that you have never done before. And when you start to sit there with your thoughts and feelings, you really start to understand who you are as a person and what's important to you. There is not one thing that when I was drinking that I thought was important that I now think is important when I'm sober. And yes, we live in such a world of instant gratification. I haven't drank for 2 days. How come my life isn't perfect? These guys are lying. It's all garbage what they're telling me. No, it's not. It takes a little bit of time because God has given you a little bit of time to figure out who you are as a person. And then all of a sudden you start to get some compliments and things start to go that way. And you just want to continue to get better. For me, I chased money and I chased golf, and I got both of them, and I still felt like I had nothing. And then all of a sudden I decided, you know what? I'm going to start sharing my story. I'm mentoring people, giving sobriety. I'm going to churches and giving speeches. I'm traveling the country and giving speeches. And I'm doing this for free. I'm not doing it for $1. And I feel like I have more than I ever had monetarily or just inside of me. I feel full now inside from just giving back. And I'm not saying that everybody that gets sober is going to give back, but all of a sudden you're going to be sober one of your friends, one of your family members is going to take note. They're going to come to you and be like, hey, man, how's it going? And I promise you, you're not going to be like, yeah, it sucks. It's horrible. You're going to say it sucks and it's horrible for the first few weeks because it's a significant life change, but it's a life change that you will never regret. And all the people that I have helped, I have never had one person say, this was a bad decision. I regret this decision. They say, I wish I would have made this decision sooner. And that's exactly how I feel.
Wow, that's so good, man. That's so good to say that. Yeah, I think that when you're around people, they start realizing that you are appreciating the moments. You're pointing out things like, like the beauty of a golf course. Obviously, we're both golfers and we're out in places we're going like, this is unbelievable. How many times you were on a golf course that you've now went back to sober. I remember the first time I went to Torion, I'd been drinking the whole time I'd been there. I go there sober. I can't put down my camera.
Yeah.
Right. You're going, this is unbelievable. My buddies were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, take it, man, look at this shot. Selfies all over the place. A video. My wife's annoyed because I'm sending her 1,000 Snapchats, but I'm going like, and my buddies are like, we've been here. I go, this guy has never been here.
Nope.
And people start appreciating the fact that not only are you influencing them by saying, hey, don't drink and don't do drugs because your relationship's going to get better, but you also hit on something that's very important is you care more. Like you care more at the soul level. Talk to me a little bit about the people you're working for and caring for and how that's starting to influence not just their lives, but then the people and the ripple effect around them.
Right. I used to be I wasn't never a superficial person or somebody that wanted to keep up with the Joneses, but I chased all those same things. And then as soon as I started to get sober and I started to help people and I started to see people's lives change because all I did was share my story. Again, it cost me nothing other than my time, which is the most important. But when you can share your story, our story, that, hey, here's where I was. Everybody thought I was way up here when in reality, I was barely above ground. And then they can turn their life around and see the benefits and whether they want to help people or not. But I'm telling you what, sobriety is a powerful enough thing that you can't help yourself from helping people because you can relate to where they're at. You can relate and understand how hard their life is and the struggles they're going. And all you want to do is pull them out and say, hey, dude, there's another side. And all you got to do is not put that booze to your mouth or whatever it is. And it's literally a transformation. But I had to be a selfish guy growing up because my time was important, not one for me, but for golf. It takes a lot of time on the road. I had a lot of commitments to sponsors, to the tour, to doing things like that. And now I just want to give my time, that is my most important thing, to everybody else. I never thought I would be the guy, because I was selfish, that wanted to give back and wanted to help. And I look and I'm like, giving back and helping is the most rewarding thing that you could ever do. And it costs nothing. And it's you can't buy it, man. You literally can't buy it. You could have all the money in the world. Some of the most unhappy, miserable people that I know have more money than they could ever imagine, but they have nothing at the soul level, nothing at the family level, nothing authentic is what I should say. It's not authentic. It's all superficial bullshit. But that's the world we live in. So we are, from our kids now, my kid's 11, on the internet, I'm monitoring it, but they just see one direct path to what, I want to be a TikTok influencer. I want to do this. Yeah, that's cool. And some people are. But you know what's really cool is helping people and changing people's lives for the better, because being an influencer with 1 million followers, who gives a shit? What's really cool is, forget those 1 million people that follow you, if you can help 5, it'll do more for you than you could have ever imagined.
That hits on one thing that I love to talk about is redefining success, right? Like
100%.
You got, a big check, right? A huge check. You've arrived, you won on the tour. They're handing you this, by the way, a goofy looking trophy. It's a little and you got it with Mickey Mouse, right?
I got Mickey Mouse, Goofy, and one other characters on there.
No pun was intended by the Goofy comment, but I forgot about that. So yeah, so you get this goofy looking trophy and you've arrived. Like, even today, I look at that photo, and now that I know a little bit about you, I can kind of look a little bit deeper and go, man, that guy didn't hit the precipice of success. He actually looked a little broken. Talk to me about that redefining of success in your life and how people can actually manage that, because success today, and I say this a lot, success today may look like just not drinking and doing drugs.
Correct.
Right? Like that may be
100%.
like a win.
Yep.
You'll book a win by that. And tomorrow you don't drink, you don't do drugs, and you walk a little bit, you exercise. I know you had a weight loss journey.
Yep.
So How do you talk to the people about redefining success and looking for these little wins in their life so that they can get that snowball effect that you've hit on?
Yep. So, yeah, it's totally about redefining success. Before I had money and winning on the PGA Tour as a success. When I got it and achieved it, I realized, holy cow, this isn't it. But for success now, I view it as, do I get to spend time with my family whenever I want? Do I have somebody telling me what to do? And the answer is no. And can I kind of be my own person and beat to my own drum? And the answer is yes. I used to, I wanted to have that big house, and I wanted to have this, and I wanted to have that. I still don't have any of that. Not because I couldn't, because I don't want to, because that's not what's important to me. What's important to me now are my relationships with my friend. And I mentioned I lost probably 90% of my friends. Obviously, they weren't real friends, but the new friends that I picked up and the friends that stuck by my side, the conversations, the brotherhood that I have with my boys now is just something that, again, you can't buy, you can't make up. When before, I would, tell stories and be superficial. And now I just fiend to have these conversations like you and I are having, because this is how we learn about people. This is how we help people. So all the things that I thought were success, being seen, being out at the best restaurant, being this, that all is not success. That is keeping up with the Joneses. What is success is having your heart full, having a smile on your face. And I'm not going to tell you I don't have problems. I still have problems. Because you get sober, because you do that, that doesn't mean all your problems go away. But what it does mean is that you can take that problem, and instead of drinking and coming up with horrible solutions, you can stare that problem in the face, figure out a solution, solve that problem, and move on. It doesn't hang over you. It doesn't own you. You now own every situation that you're in. And when you start to own situations and you start to own your own life, that's success in my eyes.
Wow, there's so much there that's just triggering a lot of it just makes me feel good. I want to run through a wall right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you how you just said that. Like when I get done talking to people, or even when I have a simple conversation with somebody that's at the gym. The other day, I walked up to a guy at the gym. I'd never seen him there. I go to the gym at the same time every day. I walked up, said, "Hey man, my name's Charlie. What's your name? I noticed I've never seen you in here. Are you new?" And he's like, "Wow, like why did you come up to me?" And I'm like, because I just wanted to know who you are. I wanted to learn your story. I kind of actually care about you, even though I don't know. But we sat there, and then he's like, "Man, just from talking to you, your energy changed my whole day." And that's what it's about. And again, I go back, it cost me nothing other than being a kind human. And right now, unfortunately, I think we live in a world where we're going the wrong direction, and people are just rude and mean. And so if you can just share a little bit of kindness with somebody, it makes an impact. And when you start to make those little impacts, it starts to go a long way. And who knows, that guy that I introduced myself, he could run a huge company, learn about my story. Now he's paying me to come speak to the company or do something like that, all because I went out of my way to say hello. When I was drinking, I would have never done that. I was mean, my head down, I'm sweating. I'm like, "Don't bother me, don't do this." Now I'm like, "What's up, dude? I'm Charlie." And I get to interact with people on a whole another more fulfilling level. And I hated people before. Right. I didn't want anything to do with them. Stay away from me. I want my own space. Now I'm like, "Dude, what's your story? Your guy here." I'm like, he didn't say too much when we first sat down. I'm like, "What's your story, man?" I learned that he's, from Ohio, lived in the Philippines. And like, I would have never known any of that had I just not asked the question. And, but those are things that you would never do when you're in that spiral and you're in that downfall, because you're only trying to worry about yourself or figure out how to get you through the day. And when you quit drinking, everything changes, man. Everything changes for you for the better.
Right. And I think you get to appreciate those hours.
100%.
Right? I find myself having the longest coffees in the world.
Okay.
Now. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I show up at coffee shops, and I find out now that my coffees just last longer because I'm not there for the coffee and or I'm going to say the meeting, whatever it might be about. I'm actually there to be there. Exactly. You know what I mean? And so my days aren't jam-packed with running from this thing to that thing. We're actually sitting in a space right now in the crowded house. It's in Mesa. It's a furniture store, which is kind of cool that we get to be here. But the owner of this place has become a friend. I actually went to her house for a project. I own a turf company, artificial turf company, and I went to her house to talk about a project. And within moments, she'll tell you that, like, I wasn't there for the turf.
Right.
You know what I mean? What's going on? We're talking, and you find out that there's so much more to life than getting the job, or the market, or the car, or the house, or the chick, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. You're not going to do that, because when you put your time in the right spots and are kind of, I'm going to say, open to the fact that something amazing might happen, in this time, and you say, I don't know what's going to happen. And guess what? That's the best part, is if I don't do this or don't do that, then I'm open to a possibility that I never even knew.
Right.
Tell me about some of those experiences.
And when how you just explained that so beautifully, you open yourself up to possibilities that are going to benefit your life, and you don't know what those possibilities are going to be. When you continue drinking or doing the drugs, you know what route you're running. You're going to feel shitty the next day. You're going to be fighting with your spouse, going to be arguing with your friends. That road leads to nowhere good. But when you clean your act up and you just start to put your life together, the possibilities are endless. And yeah, it might not be, the new job the first month you're sober or whatever, but I guarantee you're going to find out more about the person you are, and that job that you were dying for might not be the one that you actually want. And those are the powerful things that you learn about yourself, because I guarantee you, if you're listening to this podcast, you're struggling a little bit, and what you think you want, yeah, it might be what you want right now, because you're not actually your authentic self. When you make that decision and you go back the way, I guarantee everything that you have in your home right now that you think is important, you quickly understand that, dude, I can live without all this, man. And so it's just, it's really, really a magical moment when you start down this path.
You talk about that arrival back to yourself. We're just really doing that. And you say, whether that's a PGA Tour trophy, a bunch of money, whatever you're trying to fill that void with at the soul level, you don't know it until
you get it.
Until you get it. You're going to be like, wow, I can't. And then I want more of it, right?
And then that becomes our addiction. Our addiction was the booze, and now our addiction becomes sharing our story and helping people. But I'd never wanted to help people, never even thought about helping people when we were doing the booze, because we were just so consumed and enamored with ourselves and what we thought was the great thing to do, that we would never even given this a chance. And then by making a simple decision, now all of a sudden we have our time and we just want to help and give back. And it's really cool.
I know that you said you didn't go to AA, but
Nope.
did your mom get sober in AA, by the way?
She did. She just walked in on January 21st and got her 23-year chip. And let me tell you what, here's watching my mother growing up. The car would barely stop rolling. She'd yell, "Fuck you," as I got out at high school. I'd yell the same thing back to her. We hated each other because she was drinking. She was out of control. I remember every night as a 7th grader having to take the wine glass out of my mom's hand when she passed out so the glass wouldn't break and spill or whatever. And I just always thought to myself, I'm never going to be that way. I never want to be. And then I was her times 10. And so the relationship that my mom and I have, and she couldn't be more proud. She's probably begged me for the last 15 years because she saw the path I was headed down. And as a mom, somebody that loves you, they don't want you. But also, I was young. I thought I had the world by the balls. I could get hammered. I could party. I could play golf. I could do it all. Like, you can't tell me what to do. I have this figured out. I am beating the system and nobody's going to stop me until the system beats you. And when the system beats you is when I've had some moments on the golf course where I've blown tournaments and been humbled. I sit here and I am so happy to say that I've never been more humbled in my life. And I get humbled every single day. And it is being humbled. I used to think it was a bad thing. Now it's the most powerful thing that I've ever experienced. I just recently got into church and Jesus, and boy, between being sober and now having that, I almost feel unstoppable. My wife used to go to church for the first 8 years by herself, sit there by herself every Sunday at church while her husband was at home with his buddies getting hammered. She'd come back, we were hammered, we're doing this. Now, I only about in the last 6 months have I found Jesus, and let me tell you, my life has transformed again because I put the power in Jesus. He makes these decisions. And going back to the humbling comment, I used to never pray. Now I pray multiple days. I sat in my car and I prayed before I walked in here just to have a great show for me to be safe on the road today. But I have never prayed without telling Jesus, thank you for humbling me, because without being humbled, I wouldn't be this man that sits here and tell my story today. I have learned more from being humbled and having my face kicked in than I ever did from achieving any success. And I think that that's what people, when they go through this journey, is they're going to experience. You're going to get kicked in the face. You've been kicked in the face. You're going to get humbled. Things aren't going to go your way. But with the power of sobriety, everything you can complete and accomplish and feel good about.
I think that's because we learn and we grow, right?
Yes.
A lot of the experiences that we have that we've numbed out with booze or alcohol or substances, ultimately we don't learn from because we don't have to feel the pain of failure, right? So I fail, but if I put enough substance in my body, right, then who cares that I failed, right? Like, but now I fail and I say things that I really wish I hadn't said to my daughter, right? Like things I wish I hadn't done to that customer. I try to go back and like I feel those at night. Again, I go back to AA, and the 10th step in AA program is basically taking a daily inventory and saying, hey, what did I miss the mark on today? Right. And so some of that power is that you actually know that you're failing, improving, succeeding, learning, growing, and then you're yearning for it in those moments because, again, this guy at the gym may ultimately, you talked about some business deal, he may not do anything for you, but tell you maybe some new way to work out, right? Like, hey man, I see your shoulder struggling. Have you tried this? And you're just like, wow, that's cool that you impacted and influenced my life.
And it's things such as little as he's going to see me in the gym every day and be like, that guy came up and went out of his way to say hello. There's not many people that come out of their way to say hello to me or to you or vice versa, but we just took that little step and it really impacts. We don't have to change the lives of people overnight, but when you make those little steps, people take note and people appreciate that because we live in such a funky world right now where nobody even really wants to talk to one another.
Yeah. I mean, that's super obvious, right? You said about the waste management. People, obviously, they didn't influence or impact anybody out there. They just wasted away 3 or 4 days, how many ever days they spent
and
out
a ton of money and their health and feeling horrible. And I can probably say that 99% of them walked away saying, oh, I wish I didn't do that, or gosh, I screwed up, or now my wife is pissed because I got, there's just...
It ruined it.
It ruined it, man.
It ruined the experience.
And you could go there and not have a drink. Yes, it would be tough, but the experience would be totally different. It would be epic in another way, and you'd get to remember it and appreciate it and talk about it instead of like, oh, yeah, dude, I was there, but I don't really remember.
Yeah. Your stories are much, much more deeper.
Exactly. Everything in life is deeper, man, because you start to care and you only do things like now. I do a handful of things that I don't want to do because that's how life works. But everything that I do now, I get to do because I want to do it. And when you want to do something, you're willing to take those extra few steps to help that individual or to complete that process or solve that problem. And you don't do that when you're drinking because those aren't the important things.
Tell me a little bit about your next steps. You're talking about your steps to get sober, not just in sobriety. What's going on with you and your golf career? Where you stand right now with that?
Yeah, so back in July, I had no intention of going back to play golf. Golf made me miserable, and I didn't want to do that. But in July, I said, you know what? I still enjoy golf. I enjoy the competition. But for me, I said, what if I could get back on the PGA Tour and use that platform to share my story? How impactful then could I touch? I've helped a ton. I've helped a lot of people. People tell me that all the time. But now we're talking about a platform where millions of people can see it. And then all of a sudden they've got a guy that doesn't care about the tournament, doesn't care about winning the money, the trophy. All he wants to do is share. That would be, I could reach and change so many lives. So I went back to Q School in November after not playing for 5 years. I ended up getting a Korn Ferry Tour card, so I'm going to be playing here coming up. I'd like to get back to the tour, but in the meantime, I mentor a lot of people and helping them to get sober. And I said, I really enjoy that. So what am I going to do? What else can I do? Well, there's a lot of golf teachers around the world, the country, especially in Arizona, but nobody is teaching people in golf that have the experience that I do, because most guys that play on the PGA Tour, we've all made a couple bucks. We don't necessarily have to go do that. But I said, there's a Facebook page called the Arizona Golfers. I threw out the idea in there. I've turned down over 50 lessons this week. I've probably given 20, but it's nice because the demand is off the charts. I never thought I'd have it. And I don't charge an arm and a leg for people to do that because I'm not in the business to make money. I'm in the business that you come see me, you leave there a little bit maybe of a better person or a little happier or a different perspective. I have people that book golf lessons with me that we don't even hit a golf shot. They're like, hey dude, I'm using this as kind of a, I need to get sober and I need to do this, but I'll pay for the golf lesson, but I want to do this. And so now I'm giving back not only in the golf world, but also more in the sobriety world. And I get to have these awesome one-on-one interactions with people. And what's crazy for a guy that hated people and my time was important and I was selfish and wanted nothing to do with it. Now, I never do more than like 3 or 4 lessons in a day, but now I get 3 or 4 different personalities, and us as golfers, we can be a little quirky. Sure. So every experience, every hour is something totally new and totally different. And luckily for me, I haven't had any person that's told me, hey, this was a waste of my time, you suck. Everybody says, dude, the energy, that was great. When can I come back? You know? And so for me now, I want to give back, whether it's through golf, through helping people in life, through getting to know Jesus and that. I went and gave a big panel with 4 other PGA Tour players and 2 top teachers in the country the other night, and stood on a stage in church, shared this story. My inbox the next day was full of like, you have no idea what your testimony just did for me. You have no idea that that's what I needed to hear. I didn't want to come tonight, but something made me come, and now your testimony changed me. Let me tell you what. The something that made you come was God, was Jesus. He works in mysterious ways. He's worked that way in my life. He put me through hell and back. He let me achieve what I thought I needed to achieve in order to feel successful. He let me achieve that, so I knew that that wasn't the driving force of why I'm here. Why I'm here is to help people and change people's lives. Never thought I'd say that, but that's the only thing I want to do. And so golf for me is fun. It's enjoyable. It's a whole nother experience. I'm not sitting there on the course, and I was never a big drinker on the course because it would affect my mechanics, and I didn't do that. But now I get to appreciate the game in a different way. The beauty, how you said, I get to be out there and I'm taking selfies, and I've been on this golf course 50 times, but I've never got to experience it in this way. And our world is so beautiful and life is so beautiful that once you start to understand that and take those little things, man, people are like, oh, I'll only be happy if I get this new car. I'll only be happy if I get this new job. Let me tell you what, I've chased happiness, and happiness is bullshit, because as soon as you get that new car, it's the next new car. It's the next new house. It's the next bigger house. What happiness is, man, is a false sense of feeling. Joy, on the other hand, being joyful every day. You can choose to be joyful. Nobody can take that away from you. It's just a decision that you make, that I'm going to enjoy this day. And sobriety allows you to enjoy the day because you get to be who you are. You're not fiending for that next drink, at least not after a certain time period, because you will. When I first quit, I was drinking 30 non-alcoholic beers a day, and I thought it was the greatest because I could wake up at 5 a.m. and my wife would hear a can crack, and I'm hammering a non-alcoholic beer for the taste. I haven't had a non-alcoholic beer in a few years because I, quite frankly, think they're terrible, and they're not doing anything for me. And so I'm like, yeah, dude, but you just learn and you figure out things along the way about yourself that you would have never thought.
There's so much great stuff in there, and we're cheering for you. We'll share below on our YouTube, links to your stuff, and I've saw some of the things you're doing, both in golf and in the sobriety world. So we really appreciate you being here. Yep. But Charlie said some things that you guys can implement today. Things like putting one step in front of the other. You'll never know what's on the other side of this great reward until you get there. I'm going to encourage you to keep following, share. There's somebody in your life that Charlie spoke to today. Be sure to share that with them. And we'll see you next time on the Let's Go Recovery podcast.
I hope you heard something today that gets you to take one small step into the version of the person that you want to be. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel below, or you can go on letsgorecovery.org. Until next time,